Forgive me, right off the bat, I have to cheat a little bit. The gospel that we heard today was the Gospel of Luke, chapter 14, verses 24 to 33. The thing is, the chapter doesn't end until verse 35. And as a matter of fact, the two verses you didn't hear today are actually kind of significant to this portion of the gospel. So I slightly disagree with the lectionary. I feel these two verses are worthy of your time and attention. So if you'll excuse me, I want to catch you up on what you may have missed. If not, he sends a delegation. If you do not relinquish all your possessions, you cannot be my disciple. Salt, therefore, is a good thing. But if even the salt goes insipid, with what can it be seasoned? It is fit neither for the ground nor the manure pile. It is tossed out. Let the one with ears to hear listen. The gospel of the Lord. All right, thank you. I had to be very picky about which version to read it from. As a matter of fact, all of my Bibles in my office have too modern of a translation. This is my scriptural commentary book for the Gospel of Luke. The reason for that is I needed to read you a version that used the word insipid, because the whole point of this Bible passage revolves around that word. Insipid means to become foolish. That is what the word means, to become foolish. And that means that in general, you probably shouldn't call your food foolish, because that doesn't really make any sense. You know, hey, Father Justin, how's your burrito? Foolish. Just insipid and indefatigable. You know, it's just, that's not a real answer. It doesn't make any sense. It also doubly doesn't make sense because I never met a burrito I didn't like. Like, forget Christmas cookies. Christmas burritos. Let's be the best Christmas ever. But seriously, though, the answer doesn't make sense. The adjective doesn't match the noun. So if I was face to face with Jesus and I was some kind of merciless English teacher, I would really lecture into him about such a basic grammatical error. I'm sure that conversation would go well for me. But as you might imagine, it is not that simple. Christ is not talking about salt and flavor because he wants to share with his readers his recipe for salted flatbread. He's not talking about food and flavor. He's talking about life. Okay? As worthless salt is good for nothing, our lives without wisdom are good for nothing. We need wisdom in our lives, just like a kitchen needs salt. Because a kitchen without any salt of any kind, anywhere, well, obviously that's not a complete kitchen. And the thing is, the listeners of Jesus could not help but understand what he was saying, because Jesus directly told them that worthless salt becomes foolish. He says that. Salt equals wisdom. Worthless salt equals foolishness. Insipidness. So, it's kind of a shame that we have to work so hard to understand something that was so obvious back then. It's a shame we can't hear the gospel in its pure form anymore, because we don't speak that language. And if we did, we wouldn't use those idioms, analogies, or examples. And that means we need to work a little harder to grasp what these documents are trying to tell us. Okay, thank you. I know that was a long description for words that weren't even in our reading in the first place. Now, remember in the gospel how it was talking about building a tower but not finishing it, or going to war against a more powerful enemy? Well, that principle of worthless salt is at work. If you're too foolish to prepare for your construction, well, then your building is doomed to fail. Okay? Who cares if the half of the tower you built is built well? What possible good is half a tower? Just the same way, what's the point of going to war if you haven't prepared adequately beforehand? Who cares if you have good fighters under your command? If your enemy outnumbers you 2-1, you're probably going to lose anyway. So that's the problem of foolishness, basically not thinking ahead. That's the problem Jesus is talking about. So what's the solution? Well, a quote comes to mind, a quote I dearly love. If you're not smart enough to figure it out on your own, then you're not wise enough to use it properly. I love that quote. It's not perfect. It's not perfect because there are people out there that are profoundly wise who aren't particularly intelligent. You know, those people are real. That's a thing. That's not what the quote is about. What's good about the quote is it is proclaiming that there is a nominal order to things in life. It's saying first comes knowledge, then comes wisdom with respect to that knowledge of that thing. Because everything in the world can be used wisely and well, or foolishly and insipidly. And it's impossible to really appreciate the difference unless you really know a thing inside and out, through and through. So if you're not yet smart enough to figure something out on your own, you're not yet wise enough to use it to its full potential. All right? So first comes knowledge. Can you build a tower? If so, great. The next step is to wisely prepare for the construction so that you use your labor efficiently and wisely. Can you lead soldiers into battle? If so, good for you. The next step is to be wise about it and not start a war that you can't win. That is wisdom. That is what Christ is talking about. And it really boils down to effectively using your gifts in the world. Okay? Do you know how to fire a gun? If you do, you owe it to yourself and those around you to be wise and learn how to care for that gun safely and responsibly. If you know how to paint, you should paint in something to inspire some other person in some way through your skill, through your talent. That is a kind of wisdom. And finally, if you can follow someone on paper, in theory, then the next step, if you're ready for it, is to put your total trust in that person, renounce the remnants of your old life, and follow them to the ends of the earth.